Respiration, Exercise and Oxygen Debt by KayScience.com. This graph shows breathing rate along the y-axis, which is in breaths per minute, and time along the x-axis, which is in minutes. So the line that I'm drawing here is someone's breathing rate at rest. Their breathing rate is 13 breaths per minute. And at 4 minutes, their breathing rate begins to increase. And their breathing rate increases steadily to 60 breaths per minute, where the breathing rate then no longer increases and the line plateaus, it levels out. At 12 minutes, the breathing rate begins to decrease, but it does not decrease instantly. The breathing rate returns to normal at 15 minutes, so it takes 3 minutes for the breathing rate to return back to normal. So at 4 minutes, exercise starts, and we can see that because the breathing rate begins to increase. So at 4 minutes, exercise starts. The breathing rate increases because there is a higher energy demand in respiring cells because they are exercising. So that means they need an increased supply of oxygen to respiring muscle cells. Remember, aerobic respiration is when oxygen reacts with glucose to form the byproducts carbon dioxide and water, and energy is released into the respiring cells. And just after the 10-minute mark, they reach their maximum breathing rate. This is where they can no longer breathe at an increased rate. So this is their maximum breathing rate, which then plateaus. It's question time. Attempt these questions to check your understanding. At this point, there is insufficient oxygen supplied to the respiring cells. There is not enough oxygen reaching the respiring cells. So what now takes place, as well as aerobic respiration, is anaerobic respiration. They happen together. And this takes place until the 12-minute mark. So during anaerobic respiration, lactic acid is being produced and is going to be in the blood and in the muscle cells. And the longer anaerobic respiration takes place for, there's going to be an increased concentration of lactic acid in the blood. So as you can see here, there is an increased lactic acid the longer anaerobic respiration is taking place. So remember, anaerobic respiration is the incomplete combustion of glucose in the mitochondria, which forms lactic acid and releases less energy per glucose burned than aerobic respiration. So lactic acid is currently building up in the blood and in the muscle cells. It's question time. Attempt these questions to check your understanding. So at the 12-minute mark, exercise stops. And it's quite obvious to see that because the breathing rate decreases. So at 12 minutes, the breathing rate decreases, but not instantly. And it takes 3 minutes from 12 to 15 minutes to reduce the breathing rate back to normal levels. There is a recovery period when they stop exercising. So why is this? So at this point, there is still lactic acid in the blood and in the respiring cells. So there is an oxygen debt. We call it an oxygen debt. So this lactic acid needs to be removed from the blood. So there's going to be an increased breathing rate because more oxygen is required to remove the lactic acid from the blood by reacting with it. So lactic acid reacts with oxygen. So lactic acid reacts with oxygen, and the lactic acid reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water, which is breathed out. So as you can see here, during your recovery period, the volume of lactic acid in your blood decreases as the oxygen reacts with the lactic acid to produce carbon dioxide and water, which is breathed out. So the carbon dioxide and the water is breathed out as normal. So your breathing rate remains higher during the recovery period because there is an oxygen jet whereby oxygen is required to break down the lactic acid into carbon dioxide and water. When exercise stops, the breathing rate will decrease during the recovery period back down to normal levels. So the time it takes between the maximum breathing rate as exercise stops back down to the normal breathing rate is the recovery period. It's question time. Attempt these questions to check your understanding. Press pause to practice using those key words. The answers will follow. Press pause to go through your answers and make any corrections to your mistakes. Press pause to answer the questions. The answers will follow. And if you're stuck, just re-watch the video. Press pause to go through your answers and make any corrections to your mistakes.